I never thought I'd tell this story, but after 14 years of silence, I'm ready to uncover the past. A past my mother wanted buried forever. If you think tragedies only happen in movies, then listen to me. Because sometimes, the cruelest things don't come from enemies, but from the very person who gave you life. And it all started the summer I turned 12. The summer that turned me invisible in my own home. My name is Sophia Reynolds, born and raised in Portland, Oregon. Before 2011, my family was ordinary. My parents and I lived in a small turquoise house on the corner of 42nd Street. My father, Matthew, was a civil engineer, stern but always knew how to make me laugh. My mom, Diane, was a freelance accountant who stayed home more often. Every morning, Dad would drive me to school, while Mom made dinner. There was always creamy mushroom soup, my favorite. We weren't rich, but we had enough. I had books to read, my own bike, and parents who listened. On winter nights, we'd wrap ourselves in blankets and watch old movies, with Dad laughing loudly and mimicking actors until I rolled on the floor. Mom would give me a playful glare, then hand me another piece of cake. That was the peaceful time I still dream of. Before everything shattered, like a mirror thrown against a wall. It was a Wednesday, I remember clearly. Dad left the house earlier than usual because he had to drive to a new construction site in the southern suburbs. I stood at the door, waving goodbye, and he winked. "I'll take you to the river this afternoon just like I promised." I didn't know that would be the last time I saw that look in his eyes. Around 4 o'clock the landline rang. My mother answered and her face turned pale in seconds. She collapsed into the chair, still holding the phone, stammering, "No. No way. Matt? No, it can't be." I stood frozen, my heart pounding. When she hung up, she looked at me with empty eyes. "Your father, there was an accident. His car flipped at the bend. He's gone, Sophia." I thought she would pull me into a hug, but she didn't. She just sat there like a stone statue, and I, a 12-year-old girl, had to bury the scream inside my own chest. The following weeks were hell. The funeral was quiet. No one said much. Friends came and went. But my mom changed completely. She stopped cooking, never asked about school, didn't even look me in the eyes. At first I thought she was grieving, but then I realized she wasn't broken, she was escaping something, and it had nothing to do with my dad. 3 months after the funeral, Mom started getting phone calls in the evenings. I'd walk past her room and see the phone light blinking and hear her soft laughter. One time, I peeked through the door, and she quickly turned off the screen. "You knock before entering." "Sorry, who are you talking to?" "It's none of your business, Sophia." A week later, I walked into the kitchen and saw her wearing earrings and lipstick, things she hadn't worn since Dad died. "Where are you going?" "Out to meet a friend." "What friend?" "Robert." I'd known him for a few weeks. That name, Robert, hit me like thunder on a sunny day. My mom, a widow for not even 4 months, was dating. I didn't say anything. I didn't know how. I just stood there, holding my glass of water, staring at the woman who once taught me that love was sacred, something to cherish, now, acting like it could be replaced overnight. 2 weeks later, she brought Robert home. He was tall, had slicked back hair, and a fake smile that gave me chills. But what scared me even more was his daughter. Lily, 6 years old, with golden hair tied in pink ribbons and big round eyes. Like a child straight out of a perfect Christmas card. "Sophia, this is Robert and Lily," Mom said, gripping my shoulder. "They'll be moving in with us." I took a step back. "What did you just say?" "Robert needs a fresh start. And Lily needs a good big sister." "But, what about Dad? It hasn't even been 6 months since the funeral." Mom frowned. Her voice went cold. "That's over, Sophia. You need to learn to accept it." "Accept it?" It felt like my world crumbled again, and this time, it wasn't because my dad died. It was because the only person I had left chose to abandon me when I needed her most. I used to think nothing could be worse than losing my dad. But I was wrong. Because being forgotten in your own home, that's what kills you. When Robert and Lily officially moved in, my mother changed completely. She was no longer the woman who held me during nightmares, or the one who left notes in my lunchbox saying, "You're my sunshine." She became a stranger. Overly sweet to Lily, doting on Robert like he was some treasure she stumbled upon. And me? I became an old item in the closet no one bothered to dust off. I wasn't allowed to watch movies with them anymore. "Lily needs peace to sleep early," Mom said, pushing me off the couch. Dinners, once warm family time, turned into Lily's performance hour. She'd tell silly stories, mispronounce words, and everyone laughed like it was the funniest joke of the century. I just stared at my plate, quietly eating. Every time I tried to speak, Robert would cut me off with a dagger-sharp glare. "Don't you see Lily's talking, Sophia? Don't interrupt." I'd look at my mom. She said nothing, just kept piling food on Lily's plate, smiling without a hint of warmth in her eyes. I began to be excluded from the smallest things. The bathroom I used was now for Lily, because she's still little. My personal items were dumped into a cardboard box and left in the hallway. My coat was squeezed into a closet once empty after Dad's passing, now filled with Robert's suits, hats, and leather shoes. I learned to stay quiet, because every time I spoke, I earned another invisible wound. Robert always found a reason to belittle me. One time I accidentally dropped a glass while clearing the table. He stood up, slammed his hand down so hard the plates shook. "Unbelievable. A kid your age can't even hold a glass? You think water glasses grow on trees?" I whispered an apology, hands trembling as I grabbed a towel. But he wasn't done. "You live in my house, eat my food, use my electricity, and this is how you repay me? Pathetic." I bit my lip so hard it bled. I knew if I talked back, he'd turn to my mom with the usual line. "Your daughter is so ungrateful." And as always, she'd nod. Or worse, stay silent. My very existence annoyed them. Then one day someone else entered our house. Eleanor, Robert's mother. A skinny woman with a face that looked like she smelled something rotten all the time. From the moment she saw me, she frowned. "This is the girl. Doesn't look like anything special. No wonder she's always causing problems." I froze in the hallway. She walked around me like she was inspecting damaged goods. Hair unbrushed, wrinkled shirt, hunched back. No wonder no one could ever love her. I wanted to scream at her, but instead, I clenched my fists until my nails broke the skin. From then on, Eleanor haunted the house. Once, while I was reading on the couch, she walked by and tapped my knee with her cane. "Sit like that and you'll ruin your spine. What kind of girl sits like a boy?" One time, she slapped me lightly across the face because I ate too slowly and ruined the mealtime rhythm. A small slap, but enough to leave a handprint. I told my mother. She looked at me, her eyes distant like she was listening to the morning news. "She's old now, Sophia. Don't make a big deal out of it. Can't you just let it go?" In that moment I understood one thing clearly. In my mother's eyes, I was no longer her daughter. I was just an obstacle. Lily, on the other hand, was praised like an angel. One of her messy drawings was stuck on the fridge, framed on the wall, even printed onto her birthday invitations. I turned in an exam and got an A. No one even asked. She spilled milk on the carpet and my mom laughed, saying, "She's just growing up." I spilled water, and Robert yelled like thunder, and my mom called a carpet cleaner within 5 minutes. Once, I accidentally broke Lily's favorite pencil. She cried like I had just killed her pet. "She's jealous of you," Robert said. "Of course," Eleanor chimed in, overshadowed by a smarter, prettier, better-behaved little sister. Classic bitter big sister. I lifted my head and looked straight at them. "I'm not jealous, I just wish someone would treat me like a human being." No one answered. My mom stood behind the table, drawing dishes, her hands trembling slightly, but she didn't turn around. That house used to be my home, now it was just a stage where I played the background role, no lines, no spotlight, just there so others could shine. I don't remember the exact moment I decided to become independent. Maybe it didn't come in one big realization. Maybe it was the build-up of every sharp glare from Robert, every mocking word from Eleanor, every time my mother walked past me like I was furniture. But one morning in March, on my 16th birthday, I looked in the mirror and saw a skinny girl with dark circles under her eyes. And I whispered to myself, "You can't live like this forever." That afternoon, while Robert drove Lily to art class, I quietly typed and printed flyers. Sophia. Dog walking, babysitting, odd jobs. Honest, punctual, loves animals. I walked around the neighborhood, house by house, door by door, knocking and smiling as hard as I could. Mrs. Mildred, the elderly widow at the end of the street, peeked through the door and asked, "You're the girl who got yelled at the other day for spilling water on the sidewalk, right?" I blushed and nodded. She flung the door open. "Good. People who admit mistakes are the ones who learn. My Max needs a walk every afternoon. $10 each time, deal." Max was an old chuppy dog, heavy as a boulder. But I loved him from the first walk. He didn't judge me for my worn-out clothes or frown when I collapsed onto a bench out of breath. He just licked my hand and softly whined like he was saying, "You're okay." After Max, I got Pepper, the hyper little dog from the Martinez family. Then I was asked to babysit the Jenkins twins on Saturday nights. On weekends, I helped Mr. Benson, the blind elderly man, organize his closet and read his letters. I did everything, I turned nothing down. At night, while Robert's family watched movies and laughed loudly, I sat in my room, counting cash and writing notes in my old blue notebook. I saved every cent. No snacks, no new clothes, no birthday parties, just one goal: to buy a phone. One of my own. Truly mine. 3 months later, I had $187. Just enough to buy a discounted older model phone at Best Buy. I walked to the store, heart floating. When I held it in my hands, I couldn't stop smiling. That night, I sat on my bed, plugged it in, downloaded study apps, set alarms. Every beep from the phone felt like confirmation. I had done it. No one could call me a freeloader anymore. I was setting the ringtone when Lily barged in, like always, without knocking. "What's that?" Her eyes widened. "My new phone," I said, trying to stay calm. "I want it." I gave a cold smile. "No, I bought it with money I earned." She ran downstairs screaming like she'd just been attacked. "Dad, Sophia has a new phone, I want it too." I had barely stepped out of my room when Robert stormed up the stairs, eyes blazing red. "Who do you think you are, buying stuff without asking?" "I used money I earned." "What money? You live under my roof, use my electricity, eat my food. You don't own anything here." Before I could react, he ripped the phone from my hands and turned to Lily, voice suddenly sweet. "Here you go, princess." I stood frozen. "That was mine," my voice cracked. Robert turned back, face inches from mine. "I just told you, nothing here is yours. You're just extra baggage." My mom stood on the stairs, arms crossed, witnessing it all. Not a word. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't have any tears left. The next morning at school, my English teacher, S. Harper, saw me slumped over my desk in the back. "Sophia, are you okay?" I meant to shake my head, but my lips spoke first. "They took my phone. I bought it with money I earned, but they don't think I deserve it." She sat beside me. "Who's they, Sophia?" And I told her everything. For the first time in years, I told everything. About my dad, about Robert, about Lily, about my mom, about the slaps, the insults, and the phone stolen right out of my hands. That afternoon, I was called to the principal's office. And my mom was called in too. I wasn't in the room during their talk, but when my mother came out, her face was tight as a wire. She handed me the phone, without a word, and walked away before I could even react. That night, Lily cried for an hour about losing her phone. My mother banged on my door, voice low and bitter. Proud of yourself? Humiliating the whole family over a cheap toy, you really are a traitor. I lay on the bed, holding the phone. Feeling no joy. Only ashes. The tiny bit of happiness I had tried to build was once again crushed by the very people who were supposed to protect me. But in that moment, I knew I had to get out. Not because of a phone, but because I deserved a life of my own. I remember the day I received the scholarship letter so clearly. It was raining, and I had just run home from my part-time job. Soaked to the bone, mud splattered up the cuffs of my jeans. A thick envelope sat in the mailbox, bearing the official seal of St. Helena University. I ran up to my room, heart pounding like a drum. My hands shook so badly it took me a few minutes just to open it, and when I read the words, "We are pleased to inform you that you have been awarded a full scholarship," I broke down crying, not out of surprise, but because for the first time in years, I was certain I would be free of this place. That night, I waited until everyone was gathered at the dinner table. Dinner was Lily's favorite: baked pasta. Mom had even lit candles like it was a special occasion. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice calm. "I have some good news to share." Robert put down his knife, looking up with an annoyed expression. "What now?" "I got accepted into St. Helena University, with a full scholarship." No one said anything for a few seconds. Then Lily burst into laughter like I had just told a bad joke. Robert scoffed. "You applied to college without asking me?" "I did everything on my own. Mom knew I applied. I'm not asking anyone for money. The scholarship covers tuition and housing." "And you think you can just leave this house like some ungrateful brat?" I swallowed hard. "I'm not running away. This is a life-changing opportunity. I just want—" "You want what? You live in my house, eat my food, and you think you have a right to decide anything?" His voice was so loud that Lily flinched and knocked over her water glass. I looked to my mother, hoping she would say something. Next to her, a piece of bread sat crushed in her hand, her eyes fixed on her plate. "Mom," I whispered. She looked up, her gaze cold as ice. "You've never respected this family. You're always trying to ruin our lives." "Family?" I nearly screamed. "I get called a freeloader every day. I get everything I've worked for taken away. I've done everything just to survive here. And now that I have a real chance, you—" Smack. The sound echoed like a gunshot. My cheek burned. My mother's hand was still raised. Lily's mouth was wide open. Robert laughed. Like he'd just watched the best scene in a movie. "You dare raise your voice at your mother? Fine, Sophia, get out of my house. Right now." I froze. "What? You heard me," my mom hissed, her voice like a snake. "Take your things and leave." I stood up, my cheek burning, my heart crushed. I ran to my room, threw my backpack on the bed and shoved in a few sets of clothes, my notebook, school documents, and the phone I had fought so hard to keep. I didn't have time to think. Just the urge to leave immediately. As I came down the stairs, Lily was coloring like nothing happened. Robert flipped on the TV like he had just completed a chore. "And my mom?" She stared at the screen without even glancing in my direction. I opened the door. The night wind hit my face, carrying the chill of a spring that hadn't quite arrived. I stood there for a few seconds, hand clenched around my backpack strap. No one saw me off. No one called me back. I stepped out and closed the door behind me, with all the pieces of my heart I had left. I didn't know where I was going. Everything blurred under the streetlights. My legs kept walking, my eyes kept watering. I had no close relatives, no best friend to turn to. But then I remembered Maya, my lab partner in biology. The one who once lent me her book when I forgot mine. The only person at school who ever asked, "Are you okay?" and actually waited for an answer. I followed the address Maya had written on a study group flyer. My eyes were swollen, my throat dry as I rang the doorbell around 10 o'clock at night. The door swung open. "Sophia?" Maya looked shocked. "What? What happened?" I couldn't answer, I just sobbed. I I don't have anywhere to go. Maya pulled me inside without asking another question. She brought me to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and called her aunt. Miss Serena. Miss Serena was a woman with brown skin, tight cornrow braids, and eyes sharp enough to read your thoughts. When Maya whispered what happened, she simply said, "You need a place to stay, right? There's space above the garage. It's got a bed, a bathroom, and the kitchen still has some cold pizza." I stood frozen. Really? I don't joke about helping people, sweetheart. That night, I slept in the tiny loft above the garage. The bed was a bit saggy, the smell of fresh paint still lingered, and a chubby cat snoozed at my feet. But I had never felt safer. The next morning, when I woke up, my phone buzzed with a message. An unknown number. I opened it. "Mom, come home now, stop being dramatic." I turned off my phone. There was no home anymore. I never imagined a small Italian restaurant on the corner of Franklin Street could save my life. But somehow, it did what my mother never could. It saw me. 3 days after I moved into Aunt Serena's loft, I still didn't know how I'd survive. Each morning I woke up staring at the ceiling dotted with old paint stains and wondered, am I strong enough to keep going? I still went to school, tried to act normal, but every night I curled up with fear gnawing at me. Tuition, living expenses, the future. That evening after school, I sat silently in the kitchen, staring into a glass of water. Aunt Serena walked in, her hair smelling of fabric softener, carrying a paper bag and 2 plates of steaming spaghetti. She set one down in front of me, then put her hands on her hips. "Hungry?" I nodded. But I still stayed quiet. Aunt looked at me for a moment, then sighed. "Maya told me everything, about your mother, that man, all of it. You don't have to repeat it." She poured more water. "But listen, Sophia, life is a fight. You've already fought. Now it's time to learn how to stand on your own." I gave a sad smile. "I want to, I just don't know where to start. I have no money and college is coming up." She nodded. "I have a friend. Her name's Clarissa, she manages an Italian restaurant downtown. They're looking for help. I can put in a word. It's not easy work, but if you're willing, that place could be your start." I nearly jumped up. "I'm ready. I'll do anything, as long as I can stand on my own 2 feet." On Saturday morning, Aunt took me to a restaurant called La Fiora. A cozy red brick building with a hand-carved wooden sign, like a little corner of Europe in the middle of Oregon. The smell of garlic butter and tomato sauce hugged my nose the moment I stepped inside. Clarissa, a petite woman in her 50s with sharp eyes, stepped out of the kitchen, still wearing a flour-dusted apron. "You're Sophia?" "Yes, ma'am." "Serena says you're a hard worker." "Good. We don't have space for lazy people. Clear tables, wipe counters. Learn how to carry a tray. Do well, and maybe there's an apprenticeship in it for you. Do poorly, and don't come back tomorrow." I nodded so hard it nearly hurt my neck. My first shift started that afternoon. I wiped tables, washed glasses, took orders, and nearly messed everything up. I spilled water into a guest's shoe, delivered the wrong dish to the wrong table, and dropped a tray once. But Clarissa didn't fire me. She just frowned, patted my shoulder, and said, "Next time hold the tray with your left hand. Better balance. And don't run. You slip, you're done." After the shift, I collapsed on the steps behind the kitchen, my back soaked in sweat, legs completely numb. Clarissa handed me a lemonade and sat beside me, sighing. "The first day is always hell. But if you're still sitting here instead of running away, it means you've got guts. And you'll need guts in this business." I laughed for the first time in weeks, a small laugh but a real one. A week later, Clarissa called me upstairs, to the 2nd floor where there was a small attic apartment. "The previous owner used to live here, it's empty now. Not spacious, but there's a bed, a small kitchen and a window that overlooks the street. If you need a place, Serena's on board." I could barely believe my ears. I can really stay here? As long as you show up on time, and don't turn it into a pigsty." I thanked her over and over. When I stepped into that little space, with its sloped ceiling, bare brick walls and small square window, I felt like I had entered a new world. This was my space. No one to yell at me through a door, no one to snatch things from my hands. Just me, the light, and the soft hum of traffic below. The months that followed passed like pages of an unfinished book. I learned everything from Clarissa: how to check inventory, manage schedules, track reservations, work with suppliers. I took notes, learned every task like a child learning to speak. Clarissa was strict but fair. When I did well, she gave a small nod. When I messed up, she made me fix it immediately. No shouting, no humiliation. And most importantly, she believed in me. Aunt Serena visited regularly, bringing food or asking about school. Maya, somehow, became my best friend. We studied together, worked side by side, and laughed about everything. For the first time in years, I felt like I belonged somewhere. I haven't forgotten what my mother and Robert did, but I no longer let it consume me every night. I was busy. Busy living, busy learning, busy building something they could never take from me. My own future. There's a strange feeling that comes with walking into a restaurant where you once wiped tables, then sitting in the manager's office, looking at a fully booked reservation list, and knowing your fingerprint is on every brick. I, Sophia Reynolds, 24 years old, am now the co-owner of the La Fiora restaurant chain, alongside Maya, the friend who once opened her kitchen door to me on a rainy night. From a nervous server, I now sign off on employee paychecks, negotiate with wine suppliers, and approve special menus for private events worth thousands of dollars. The journey here wasn't easy. But there's nothing I'd change. After living in the attic for 3 years of college, I graduated with a degree in hospitality business management. There was no party, no family applause, but I wore an old cap and gown and stood in the school courtyard with Maya, who was studying menu and food photography design. We laughed together, no fireworks, no cameras, just a shared look that said, "We're going to build something big." And we did. Clarissa, my blunt, no-nonsense mentor in the restaurant world, announced her retirement after 25 years running La Fiora. That day, she called us up to the office and pulled a stack of papers from her drawer. "What would you two think about running this place together?" she said, eyes never leaving the contract. I looked at Maya, then back at Clarissa. We'd have to double our effort. Then double it, but do it right. We bought Clarissa's shares using all of my savings, plus a small loan from a support fund for young women entrepreneurs. Maya handled brand and visual design, from tablecloth colors to the food photography concepts. I handled operations, systems, hiring, accounting, and customer complaints about dishes that didn't taste like last year. After 6 months, revenue increased by 1.5 times. We opened a second location in a busy corner of Beaverton, then a third in Salem, and recently a fourth in the art district of Eugene, where young crowds flock every weekend to experience our modern twist on Italian cuisine. Each location carries its own vibe, but all keep La Fiora's soul: honest, heartfelt, and unpretentious. No silk tablecloths or crystal glasses, just pasta, made with real love, and staff who know regulars by name. I remember once, a businesswoman from California dined with us. I was clearing dishes myself to help the team when she asked, "Are you the manager here?" I replied, "Not just the manager, I'm also the owner." She nodded slowly, smiling. "I could tell from the way you walked into the kitchen, from how you looked at your staff, this isn't just a restaurant. This is your child." I smiled. I didn't deny it. We didn't just expand the space, we spread our values. Maya leads a mentoring program for culinary students. I provide in-house training for young employees who want to grow in the industry. We take interns from local schools and host workshops for aspiring young chefs. And at every location I've set aside a small corner, with a photo of Clarissa and the words, "The first person who taught me to believe in myself." I'll never forget the one who gave me a second chance. One Monday morning, while I was reviewing shipment schedules, Maya walked into the office, holding a copy of Northwest Culinary Voice. a leading culinary magazine in the Pacific Northwest. Guess who just made it into the top 10 fastest-growing independent restaurant chains? I raised an eyebrow. Please don't say La Fiora, because my heart won't be able to take it. Maya flashed a radiant smile. La, fi, oh, ra. I sat in stunned silence. Just for a second. Then stood up and grabbed her hand. We did it! And we're just getting started. We used to fall asleep on our laptops after messing up payroll. We once cried together in the walk-in freezer after a supplier canceled a delivery last minute. But every time I saw a customer walk in, smile, and say their favorite dish still tasted just right, I knew it was all worth it. I didn't need to be honored anywhere. I didn't need applause or admiration. I just needed to walk into my restaurant, hear the clinking of silverware, smell the rich aroma of sauces, and know in my heart, I got here on my own 2 feet. No one gave me this life. I claimed it. Some moments, thought long buried by time, suddenly surface like a cold blade slicing through healed skin. For me, that moment came on a Saturday evening at our downtown Portland La Fiora location. I was heading downstairs to the private event room, wearing my usual professional smile and holding the printed special menu. The engagement party had been booked 3 weeks in advance via email. No familiar names, no red flags. All I knew was there would be 48 guests, a cozy atmosphere with candlelight, and a 3-tier tiramisu cake. The restaurant was bustling. Glass chandeliers reflected light into wine glasses, the gentle clinks of spoons against porcelain forming a soft symphony. Sophia, they're here, Maya said as she stepped into the office, her expression strange. You might want to come down and see for yourself. I frowned. Is there a problem? You'll understand when you get there. I slipped on my black blazer with the La Fiora badge pinned on the chest, a symbol of my role, co-founder. I took a deep breath as I descended the wooden staircase, just as I had done countless times before. But nothing could have prepared me for what I saw in that banquet room. My mother, Robert, and Sarah. I froze, blood rushing to my face. There was no mistaking them. My mom still had the same hairstyle, soft blonde curls, cream cashmere sweater. Robert looked heavier, his receding hairline even more pronounced. Sarah wore a glittery dress, her hand flashing with a sparkling engagement ring. Beside her stood a young man in an Armani suit. Sarah's engagement party. My mother had just raised her glass when her eyes landed on me. I wasn't sure she recognized me right away. But when her gaze dropped to the name badge, Sophia, manager, La Fiora, she stiffened. And then, she laughed. A mocking laugh, loud enough to turn heads. Oh, look who it is, our little waitress. Sarah turned and recognized me immediately. She shrieked with laughter. Unbelievable, my sister, the one who ran away crying, is now serving food. I didn't say a word. I just stood tall, one hand gently resting on the menu folder. The room's attention began to shift toward me. Robert stood, wobbling as if he'd had too much to drink. Still waiting tables, huh? 10 years later and no progress. I bet you still don't know how to hold a glass properly. Sarah giggled, snuggling up to her fiancé. Let's hope she doesn't spill sauce on my wedding dress tonight. I clenched my teeth. Every cell in my body screamed to respond, to shout the truth. But before I could say anything, a clear, firm voice rose behind me. According to our service contract, any guest who insults or harms staff or management will be asked to leave immediately. I turned. Maya stood there, holding a leather-bound contract folder with La Fiora's gold-embossed logo. My mother scowled. And who are you to say that? Maya smiled, sharp as a blade. I'm the co-owner of this place. My mother froze. But I still hadn't spoken. Not because I was afraid, but because I wanted them to hear it from me. I stepped forward. And I am Sophia Reynolds, co-founder of the La Fiora restaurant chain, currently with 4 locations across the state of Oregon, including the one you're standing in. The room fell silent. Somewhere, a spoon dropped onto a plate. Robert's face turned red, almost about to explode. Don't make things up, you're nothing but. I pulled out my phone, tapped a few times. A video started playing. Footage of me giving a speech at the grand opening of La Fiora's 4th location, shaking hands with the mayor. My face, my name, the words I had written myself. Sarah grabbed her fiancé's phone, frantically searching. Then, she stammered. On Google, it really is Sophia Reynolds. My mother's hand trembled, spilling her wine. She still wouldn't look at me. Her eyes locked onto the photo hanging on the wall. Me standing beside Clarissa, my mentor. With the words beneath, from invisible child to founder. Robert slammed his hand on the table. You think you're better than us? You're just a fatherless brat who got kicked out for being disrespectful. I looked at him, my gaze steady, no longer afraid. No, Robert, I was thrown out for daring to live honestly, for standing up after being trampled, and now I stand here as the owner. Your guests. And you just insulted a staff member, who also happens to be a co-owner. So... I turned to the staff. Please clear this table, this engagement party is over. The room erupted in murmurs. Guests whispered, Sarah cried, Robert shouted in protest. My mother sat frozen like stone. But me? I felt at peace. Because after all these years, I finally had the right to say, I'm no longer the shadow in your house, I am my own person. And I don't belong to you anymore. Robert stood, his face flushed with rage, or shame, I couldn't tell. He stumbled, holding a wineglass, then suddenly grabbed a salad plate and hurled it at me. Everything happened in a flash. A sharp pain across my left cheek. I felt dressing on my skin, lettuce tangled in my hair. Gasps filled the room, phones quickly came out. I raised a hand to my face, tasting blood at the edge of my lip. No apology, no remorseful glance. Robert stood there, panting, screaming like a madman. I raised you for years and now you come back here to humiliate me? You think running a damn restaurant makes you special? You're still that pathetic little leech. Maya stepped in immediately, her eyes like steel. You've crossed the line, that was physical assault, and the restaurant has the entire incident on video. I turned to the security team. Lock all camera feeds, pull the last 30 minutes, send them to our internal server. Across the room, Sarah sobbed, covering her face like she was the victim. Her fiancé, now pale as a ghost, quietly pulled out his phone to call a cab. My mother sat still, her confused eyes scanning the room. When I looked at her, she still wouldn't meet my gaze, just like 10 years ago. But this time, I didn't beg her to speak. I stood tall, blood trickling lightly down the collar of my shirt. Please assist the guests at this table in leaving the restaurant. As stated in the contract, any disruptive or violent behavior results in immediate cancellation of the event, without refund. Another staff member stepped forward. Security is on the way, Miss Sophia. I nodded. Thank you. Everything that followed felt like a slow-motion reel. Robert was restrained by 2 security guards while Sarah screamed at our mother to do something. Eleanor, still alive and still as vicious as ever, clung to her pasta plate like it was treasure, screeching, You lunatic, you have no right to kick me out of my granddaughter's party. A server tried to gently take the plate and she shrieked. Thief! You're robbing me? He hit me, call the police. Already done, ma'am, Maya replied calmly, her voice steady. Some guests started recording. One captured Robert being escorted out of the restaurant, still cursing through slurred speech. Another filmed Sarah collapsing into a chair, clutching her head, mascara smeared like something out of a horror film. 30 minutes later, the police arrived. I stood silently as one of the officers asked, Who's the victim here? I raised my hand. Me, Sophia Reynolds, co-owner of this establishment. That man threw a plate at my face. There is video footage and multiple witnesses. Robert was handcuffed and taken away, still shouting drunken insults. Sarah tried to follow but was stopped at the door. None of them, not a single one, looked back at me. The next morning my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. First, Maya sent over the security footage, high quality, full audio, capturing the entire exchange, the assault, and my response. Then came a wave of videos from guests, uploaded to TikTok, Facebook, and Reddit. Within 12 hours, the hashtags "engagement gone wrong" and "pasta assault" were trending across Portland. A clip of Eleanor screaming about her pasta plate went viral as a meme, "When your dignity is pasta-shaped." I opened my email, hundreds of messages from strangers. One read, "I was abused by my stepmother too, thank you for standing up. You're an inspiration." I've never dared speak back before. But now I'm rethinking everything. On professional forums, I was being praised as a resilient woman and a composed leader in the face of public provocation. Meanwhile, my former family unraveled. Robert was suspended from his job for behavior unbecoming of a company representative. Sarah lost her wedding venue contract. The venue wanted nothing to do with a publicly violent event. My mother said nothing. No comments. No message. No apology. I kept the video public. Not for revenge, but as a reminder to myself of the person I used to be and the woman I've become. I'm no longer the girl they called a freeloader. I am Sophia Reynolds. I rose from the insults, the blood on my cheek, and the shattered salad plate at my feet. I don't need their forgiveness. I just need freedom from them. Sophia's story is a testament to the strength of resilience and self-respect. Hurt, dismissed, and abandoned by her own family, she did not collapse, she rose. She built success with nothing but grit and purpose. Despite being trampled, Sophia didn't fight back with hatred, but with maturity, courage, and self-worth. She proved that sometimes, the most powerful revenge isn't a comeback line, it's a life so brilliant, they never even imagined it. What do you think of Sophia's decision? Should she ever forgive her family? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful, real-life stories about family, courage, and redemption.